I'm back at the Chatuchak Market. It is Wednesday morning, and you could see that the sun is already burning hot. I was told to come in the morning because the afternoon is just too unbearable and there's not as many people. But you could see there's a lot of activity here, a lot of cars, a lot of folks actually buying with the plant purveyors. And I'm here because I just wanted to experience it in the daytime and see what plants that I missed last night. The Thai really specialize in different cultivars of Aglaonemas. These are some really interesting varieties. You could see that this one has some mottling, but also the pink lines. This one looks like a hardier variety. It's got a much thicker leaf. What cultivar is this?
Aglaonema.
Aglaonema what, though?
Name Lotandam.
Okay.
From Indonesia.
Yeah.
Yes, have flower.
I've grown things like this in New York, and they're not always the hardiest in the Northeast climates. But these I'm starting to see much more of in the New York market. This one's an interesting one too. It's got a smaller leaf.
Compact.
Astrophytum cacti have become very popular in Asia, so we'll probably end up seeing a lot of them. This one in particular has a lot of that white variegation and V-shaping. It's probably selected for this. But you can see this guy has a nice selection. I've started to enjoy collecting more chicken knickknacks. And this place has some really cute chickens and some really large ones as well. You can see over there. Look at this brown one. I kind of like the brown one better. It reminds me a little bit more of Kippy when she sits. Oh, so cute. This is a cool Papillopetalum, and this has not a flower on a large stalk, but has a flower kind of hanging off. I think these are really attractive ones. Really beautiful foliage as well. You could see has those like deep purple undersides. It's a beautiful specimen. Same here. I don't know what species these are or if they're cultivars, but really beautiful plants. And then this is kind of interesting how they're growing them in these bottles over here. Cattleya. These get really beautiful, brilliant, large, known for their flowers. You can see all the roots right here. Don't knock anything over. So Diefenbachias haven't really made much of an impression in the United States, but I've heard that these are very on trend for Thailand right now. The bigger the spines on the Diefenbachias, the better. These folks have some interesting Aglaonema cultivars as well. Nothing that I feel like is too unusual that I haven't seen in the US market, but sometimes cultivars are very similar to other cultivars. Some of the other ones that I saw earlier with those like darker leaves were much more interesting. So these are some common varieties that we typically see. This is an Apicias. These have beautiful Apicias with a darker leaf. And of course, as my friend calls these, Home Depot pothos. But this one's also a beautiful one. These are Monstera spa. There is not a species name. They're often called Carsteniana. They have a very beautiful thick leaf, very easy to grow. And you'll see some of the ones with windows over there are Monstera adnasonii and some Pothos enjoys. These are really typical houseplants that you could find in the US and also Europe. This is really good. Freshly cut fruit. By the time I return to New York, it's going to be winter and we won't have a lot of fresh fruit. So I'm going to enjoy this. So this plant seller has some interesting species. This one to me looks like an Anthurium pedatum. Again, a lot of these plants aren't actually listed with a name, so it's unclear to me sometimes what they are. This one is a very interesting type of Hoya, I believe. It's not in bloom, much more succulent variety than I'm accustomed to, also more succulent than you see this one right here, which is also a beautiful Hoya. Some stunning begonias here as well. These blackish kind of color with the red bottoms, a type of Rex begonia. This Apicia is growing in a very interesting way. So this seems like to be a terracotta pot, a very round one with moss, and the Apicia is really clinging onto this. So if you see Apicias in the wild, they typically are growing on rocky surfaces. They don't have a lot of soil. And this one has a very interesting collection strategy where the water goes in here, slowly trickles out of the terracotta pot into the moss, and then that is making this Apicia extremely happy. Although I don't know about this, if you have a lot of mosquitoes during the summer months, this would be a place where mosquitoes would probably think it's a nice haven to put their young. So I would say that don't go with this kind of strategy, but very interesting to see kind of how to mimic the way an Apicia would typically grow in the wild. I like these little pots because I think that these would be fun to create little dioramas like they have in this pot. Maybe something like this size. No bag for me. I'm fine. Yeah, thank you. Such a cute collection of pots. Each and every one of them is so special, and they're like $1, which is unbelievable. My goodness. I know where to come if I want pots next time I'm here in Thailand. Look at this. This is just a little over $1. And they also have holes in them, which you can't, sometimes you could find really interesting pots, but they don't always have holes in the bottom, drainage holes. This purveyor has a number of Dischidias right here. Some of the hanging ones you could see, Abovata. And then some variegated Hoyas down here. Hoya carnosas probably. And then also an Aeschycanthus known as zebra basket vine. What's interesting about this though is that they have it growing in coconut coir like this one, which is interesting because I often see this sold in soil in the gardens and nurseries in the United States, but this tells me probably grows in and on trees because it doesn't need a tremendous amount of soil in order to be able to survive. It's probably accustomed to growing in in or on bark. So super insightful. This is another interesting species of Aglaonema, a very thin-leaved variety. I have one of these growing in my house. Very slow grower, but very reliable. And these are some interesting Dracaenas that you have here that have this like splotchy look. I believe this is the actual species, like this hasn't been cultivated. This is an actual look of this particular variety. And then if you could see also here, plenty of jewel orchids that he seems to be specializing in. Some Ludicea discolors and also some different cultivated varieties. And a Labicia right here, which actually is a very reliable houseplant. Good for terrariums, but it doesn't need to be in terrariums. And this one right here is an Impatiens with Caudex, which typically could grow in, I think, more rocky or limestone areas. This guy seems to specialize in a lot of charming Sansevieria. This one, I'm not sure of the species, but it looks like Sansevieria, similar to Cleopatra, although it might not actually be that one. And then you could see this is probably Sansevieria samurai dwarf, and this may be something similar to Sansevieria rorita. Very cool and very charming. This one I think is Sansevieria kirkii coppertone, which has a really nice brown hue. And some other standard Sansevierias. He has some pretty large ones. You could see this one kind of grows a little bit more outwards, like a rosette, as opposed to this one, which I think is commonly called the baseball bat Sansevieria. Very thick, but he has a really nice display, so I thought I would point it out for all the Sansevieria lovers. This fern is pretty cool. These are the sterile fronds right here. So these actually don't produce any sori or spores. But this basically in the native habitat will form these baskets so that the water could actually fill into the basket and they could extract both water and nutrients in order to be able to keep this plant alive. So it's a very cool structure to see these two different types of leaves and how it would mimic and how you would place it in your landscape to mimic its native habitat. This is a new kind of Dracaena cultivar that I haven't seen before. It's got a really beautiful stripe-like variegation. I've seen ones that are a little bit more lemon lime in color, but this one is quite smart and sharp with this white and green striping. This one's called King of Kings Anthurium, which has this really lime green look. Very thick leaf. I think this would make probably an excellent houseplant. May require a little bit more light than its darker cousins. This is a nice Dracaena. It's nice. I like the coloration. Yeah, it's new, right? It's really cool. This purveyor really loves his cattleyas here. These are some really beautiful orchids, kind of the showiest ones of the orchid world. Some of them are fragrant, some of them are not. Sometimes flowers get a little bit more fragrant at night depending on what is actually pollinating them. This stapeliad, it has a Tillandsia in it, a little Tillandsia ionantha, but this is a stapeliad. I'm not sure quite which one, but it looks like it's going to be in full bloom very shortly. These are the buds, and you can see that this one's just about to open up. I'll pull back the little petal here. And it kind of has this look of like rotten meat like you typically see with some of the carnivorous varieties of plants. And it probably is a way to attract flies in order to pollinate this. This has a lot less Hoyas than what we saw just last night. One of the plants that we didn't actually highlight here in Thailand is the musa, or the banana plants. There's so many different varieties of bananas here, probably over 200 different varieties and cultivars and species of banana. You'll see ones with more variegated foliage, you'll see red bananas, and you'll see ones with deep red or purple flowers to yellow flowers. It's pretty cool. They're not typically house plants, although you can grow some in homes, but these you'll see growing in the landscape. So I'm not really always into little plastic tchotchkes, but this is super cool because it's a little rose head that you would put on any old bottle. So she has a bottle here, an old Pepsi bottle, and you just put this on the cap and you could water the plants very delicately so that it doesn't actually push away any of the soil. Because sometimes when you're watering your plants, it could really push away the soil if it's too heavy of a spray. 9, 10. Oh, thank you very much. I really appreciate it. Thank you. All right, so I have a number of these beauties right here, so check out the description below because I'll be giving away 10 of these. Because I think these are just so clever yet so simple. This is a pump that they've also developed. She's getting a nice spray back. Feels good, huh? That concludes my time here at the Chatuchak Market. I'm so grateful that I got a chance to come here both Tuesday night and Wednesday morning when it is at its busiest. So did you see any interesting species this time around? Tell me what you would walk away with in the comments below. And remember, if you want to support this channel, then plant your finger on that subscribe button, and you can follow along on my daily journey on my blog at homesteadbrooklyn.com and on Instagram at homesteadbrooklyn. See you guys later. Interested in developing a deeper relationship with the people and plants around you? Then check out my book, How to Make a Plant Love You. Cultivate green space in your home and heart. Bring the book to select plant shops and get 15% off with the Plant Shop Pub Crawl. More information up on my blog at homesteadbrooklyn.com. And if you're looking for more tactical plant care, then you could turn to the Houseplant Masterclass, which is the first online audiovisual course on houseplant cultivation, care, maintenance, and more at houseplantmasterclass.com.